Hello guys, and welcome back to another cup of coffee at Sai Cafe. And today we could talk about the interview, some background on how it went, and a couple of questions that we got in the interview. So let's go ahead and get started. Concerning the embassy track, this is how it went. In the beginning, they invited quintuple the quota, 5 times the quota. So for us, we had only 3 seats through the embassy track, so they invited 15 people. They called us to confirm the interview date at the very beginning, like after the deadline of the application. And we did not have enough time to prepare, so they called us on Monday. We were interviewed on Friday. So if you are someone who lives away from the capital or where the embassy is, you'll have to prepare, because you'll have to get, I don't know, transportation ticket, you'll have to get the documents if you need any documents. You will need to prepare yourself, because that's not enough time for you to prepare and to prepare for the interview as well. There were 3 Koreans and 3 locals, the committee. Then they had our application forms and documents on the desk. So everyone who was interviewed, they have his or her application forms and the documents he or she has submitted ready on the desk so that they could interview him or her thoroughly. The interview took between 10 to 15 minutes in total. And for the language of the interview, we had to choose either English or French. French because in my country, French was the second language. So in your country, it may be different. But I'm pretty sure that English is always there. Just remember that each country is different. That was the case for the embassy track. But I actually have a friend here who has applied to the university track. He could talk to you guys about how it went.
I applied to SKKU. When I applied, I was interviewed by 2 persons. First, my interview was with PhD student from this electrical department. Then after 1 day, I received another email from that PhD student that I will have another interview with the professor from that same department. I think after the admission deadline, I got the email from the admission committee that I will be having interview, which would take 10 to 15 minutes, and it was 2-stage interview. First was from the PhD student who is working with some specific professor. If that PhD student is convinced, then another stage interview would be conducted by the professor. There are some scholars, even in the same university where I applied, they weren't interviewed. A girl from India, she applied for same department, same university, but she was never interviewed. There are some guys here who are studying the language. They were never conducted interview because either he or she was in contact with those university or professor way ahead of the application, or those universities from home university and the Korean university has some kind of MOU, so that result in never interview. My interview was between 10 and 15 minutes in each stage of the interview. So my first interview with PhD student, he was from Pakistan, so it was completely in English. Then my second interview with the professor, and that was also in English.
So we go back to the most exciting part, which you guys waited for. So when I asked my friend, the questions were more or less the same either way, whether through the embassy or the university track. And the first question, which is a typical interview question, tell us something about yourself. It just provide a quick background about yourself, who you are, where you're coming from, what your plans, and where you study, and blah blah blah. Next thing, they asked about education background and relevant work experience. So you just give them a quick background on where you studied, what you're doing now, and what are your future plans, and also relevant working experience if you have some. And then they ask this question, why Korea? So you basically tell them why you chose Korea and not the US or other place. Then they asked me to talk about my research subject. So I had to identify the research subject and elaborate more on it, and I went into more details, not like in the application, I went into deep details. They asked me also why I have chosen that subject and why I chose to conduct it in Korea. So you better have some answer for that, because everyone is different. And then they asked me, what's your plan and goals after the scholarship? And that's also a personal thing. Another thing they asked me is whether I have had an experience with Koreans or Korean culture. They asked me to talk about it, and in fact I did, and I talked a little bit about it and they liked it. So just if you pay attention here, it's kind of all the questions you have in your personal statement and statement of purpose. You better prepare that well, know all the answers you have in your application, because most of the time that's what they're asking. And not only like know what you've written, but like get ready to provide further details because that's what they're asking for. Yeah, and that constituted 15% of the questions of the interview. And the other 50% were based on key information I mentioned in my application. Like for example, I mentioned that I studied abroad, so they said, where did you go, why, how was it, what did you learn from it? I mentioned that I presided a club in my university, how was it? Yeah, so just random information that you write in your application and the documents you provide. Because I provided a lot of extra documents, so they asked me about them, like the awards. Yeah, they asked me about a lot of things in my resume as well. So you better be ready to answer random questions here and there all over your application. And you better not lie, either in your application or in interview. So both the information you provided in your application and your answers during your interview should match. So the results for the embassy track. They called us after 2 days of the interview, which was actually a weekend because we took the interview on Friday and I got a call at noon on Monday saying that congratulations, you've passed the interview, but don't be happy yet because we sent your application to NIID and they will make the last selection. So they actually selected around double the quota. For us it was 3 and they selected 6 people and they sent all of their applications to NIID. Yeah, they mailed our applications and documents to NIID. Then NIID selects the final scholars, like 3 out of 6. That's the quota of your country. That's how the results go in the embassy track. But for the university track,
we just have to wait for like NID to publish the result. In first round, there will be like 2 results. First will be like university track result and another is like embassy track result. So the whole way we have to just wait. University track have just to wait, nothing else.
That sounds easy. That was for the university applicants. So yeah, that's it for today, guys. I hope that this video gave you kind of a general idea on how the interview is conducted. Again, every country is different, so don't expect your interview to be exactly like this because these were just our cases. Just prepare as many possible questions as possible and that way you could cover most of what they're gonna ask you. I'm actually planning to make a video very soon on tips that could maybe help you in taking your interview. So until then, make sure you subscribe to get notified whenever I upload the next video and the next videos. And let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching and see you very soon.